host the program, and I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We have the wonderful Maple Festival coming up this weekend, and I just want to remind you that the parade is at noon on Sunday, and there are all kinds of events, music, and you name it going on. Maple syrup everywhere. So please be sure to enjoy that. And also, before I introduce my guest, I would like to share with you something that I think is really thought-provoking and important to think about. How to stay young. Youth is not a time of life. It is a state of mind. Nobody grows old by merely living a number of years. People grow old only by deserting their ideals. Years wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. Worry, doubt, and self-trust, fear, and despair. These are the long, long years that bow the head and turn the growing spirit back to dust. Whether 70 years old or 16, there is in every being's heart the love of wonder, the sweet amazement at the stars and the star-like things and thoughts, the undaunted challenge of events, the unfailing childlike appetite for what next, and the joy and the game of life. You are as young as your faith, as old as your doubt, as young as your self-confidence, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, as old as your despair. I'm sort of a philosophical person in a way, and I love this type of message. It makes me think, and I hope it will make you think as well. With that, I would like to introduce now my guest, Kathy Lavoie. Welcome.
Thank you.
We've known each other for quite a number of years, haven't we?
Yes.
And Kathy is a program manager at the Restorative Justice Center, the Franklin Grand Isle Restorative Justice Center. And even though I've done my homework, which I always try to do, I think I'm going to learn a lot tonight from Kathy, and I think you will too. And I have a feeling that we're going to come to the conclusion that the Restorative Justice Center is an important thing for our community and our county and so forth. So one last thing, a quote by Winston Churchill. Think about this. Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. So there, I'll let that go and we'll move on. Okay. So Kathy, you have told me that you started to work on January 1st of this year.
Yes.
With the Restorative Justice Center.
Yes.
Now, how did that happen?
Well, I have been, as you know, the Workforce Investment Board Executive Director for several years now. So I worked a lot with individuals in career exploration, job placement, higher education, and training programs.
Wow.
And a lot of that was centered on initially with the youth in our region. So I was one of the first ones here in Franklin County and in the state to be going into the high schools and talking to young adults about their pathways to careers and education. So, and to be honest with you, over time, a lot of that funding has dissipated. Some of it because now within our high schools, there is legislation in which every high school has to have somebody a little bit like me, where they're working with the young adults on their pathways, on careers that are available, on exposing them to the workplace to specific jobs, specific employers, and any sort of higher education training that goes along with that.
Now, is this primarily primarily then for high schoolers, or does it include middle school?
Well, right now the law is for high schools, and it says that every high school needs to have a coordinator that did something like what I did. Over the course of time, now, of course, that is also that type of work is flowing into the younger classrooms as well, and it should. We need to be helping the kids to explore those careers long before we have previously. Certainly, when I was in school, nobody really asked me what I wanted to be. What they helped me to do is to understand what I was good at. Then where I went from there was a lot of it was left up to me. And so all those years ago, it was difficult for me, and we know that it's difficult for the young adult of today's world. So the earlier we can get into the classrooms and do that, the better. But so because of that legislation, much of my time started focusing on the adult population. And certainly just because you're 18 or 20 or 26 years old doesn't necessarily mean, of course, that you understand what is what you might want to do with your life. And we should be lifelong learners, so it's never too late to learn a new career. It's never too late to change a career. That's one of the things that I had said to the kids when I was in the classroom a lot was, take it seriously, put thought into it, be committed to it, be ready to take a change if you need to, but don't worry about it so much that you do nothing, because at that time I would say, guess what, I'm 54 years old or I'm 50 years old and I'm on my 5th career. And now at 55 years old, I'm on my 6th career.
Sure.
But that population of the older adults kept coming back and back, and therefore a lot of the funding from the state, as we should, is to help focus on that demographic. As well as that, certainly with the high or the low level of unemployment that we have now, many companies are looking for people. So we have a whole bunch of things that are coming down on the state and down on the nation. And a lot of that is our population is not increasing, and we have less and less people to fill those jobs. So part of the state's support and initiative is to make sure that we're looking at all the individuals in our communities and be utilizing them for the workforce. And part of those individuals, of course, are those individuals on probation and parole and FSU. And by and large, the employers don't always look to employ them because of their criminal record. And certainly that's understandable, but I believe that helping to support them to understand as well what they're good at and what they're not good at, what training they might need, what career pathway they might take, what job they might want to do is equally as valuable. Number one, if for no other reason, then it helps our economy because we're filling jobs that are open. But number two, I personally believe because it's the right thing to do.
Is there, as part of the program, Kathy, is there discussion with the young people, for instance, about dedication to learning, about being responsible for your learning? Because, well, maybe my perspective is likely is different from what is happening today, because we had none of this in the many years ago that I was in school. But all I know is that you had a responsibility to yourself to make sure that you learned everything you could.
Right.
And
no, certainly. In fact, I would say that the young adults in our school systems are much more engaged with that type of decision making than they've ever been.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Because now it is focused about learning skill sets that are transferable. What are those things that we all ought to know and should know in order to be successful no matter what we do for a job, no matter where we go? So there's an entire focus through the Department of Education on those transferable skills.
Like?
Some of them, they used to be called soft skills, right? They used to be showing up to the job on time, being punctual when headed to a meeting, being prepared to work, being able to engage with others, conflict resolution, being able to get along with others, to play well with others, all of that stuff that we consider soft skills are now bundled together with transferable skills.
They're all important.
They're all critically important.
You could be the smartest person in the room.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you don't have people skills and personal responsibility skills and all the things you mentioned, your chances of success are lessened.
No, and that was one of the things at that time that I spoke to the young adults about a lot. And there's a lot of focus on creating a resume. You know, writing up a resume is critically important, and I tell every one of them, you make sure you do not leave this high school without having a resume. It's part of your responsibility, it's part of the school system's responsibility. But as I tell them, it's very easy to write a resume. It's a whole lot more difficult to build a resume. What you do in your young life, whether it be in community service you do, it be part of the committees and school events, whether it's being, you know, part of your church community.
Having a job outside
of school, making sure that even if your academics aren't 4.0, that you're thoughtful and do the work you need to do. So that conversation is happening all the times in our classrooms. But the focus for this new position is working more with the adults that are on probation, parole, and FSU in our community.
Outside of the schools.
Outside of the school system. So that work is done through the Restorative Justice Center, and here in this region, it's the Franklin Grand Isle Restorative Justice Center. I have been a board member, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't quite remember, but somewhere around 7 years. And now find myself as an employee doing the employment piece for those individuals.
Well, it sounds like an interesting opportunity, Kathy. I want to quickly go back to the resume, because it requires you to know the English language, spelling, sentence structure. All of those things reflect, if they're poorly done.
Oh, absolutely.
A potential employer will say, whoa.
Yep.
You know, this person, if they can't write properly in the English language, they may not speak properly to my employees or my customers either.
Yep.
So there's so many working parts to this.
Oh, absolutely. And again, the resume might be a perfect little resume with the great GPA, may be what gets you that interview. You and I know that, right? It's well written, it's well formatted, it says everything it should say. But we also know, even if that's what gets you the interview, it's all of that other stuff that may get you the job and lets you keep the job.
Your ability to have a conversation, to present yourself well. There's so much goes into it. And young people need to know that.
Yep. No, that work is aggressively going on in all of our schools around the state.
Are they getting grades? Because this is one thing.
We're off on a topic I hadn't planned on discussing.
All right.
But the ABCD grades, it's has been changed to proficiency-based learning. And, there's something to be said about that. It's a difficult change for those of us that didn't certainly go through our school system that way. But there is something to be said about...
It's indecisive. It's subjective on the part of the teacher instead of having
But it does require, as you had said previously, it requires a young adult to actively take part in their education and their learning. They actively have to understand the proficiency that they need to meet in order to move along. Kids are not just simply moved along because they're now in sixth grade instead of fifth grade. It's a level of proficiency that needs to be attained, and that's good. Beyond that, that's a whole conversation.
We'll do that another time.
Okay.
Because I've spoken with students about it.
I know, and it is.
They hate it.
Well, I'm sure some.
They're
of them
worried
do.
about getting to college, and the college isn't going to know I'm proficient. What does that tell them? We'll leave it alone.
You could certainly do an entire show, Linda.
Okay. We'll forget that. All right, we'll move on.
Okay.
So, are you then now working with the folks who are now adults or out of school at least,
Yeah.
who have committed a crime or gotten into some kind of trouble.
That's right.
And trying to restore them.
Well, it's part of the restoration, and actually we have a number of units within the Restorative Justice Center. And as you and I have spoken, over the course of the next 3 months or so, 6 months, we're hoping that you would take the time to have individuals from these various divisions of the Restorative Justice Center come in and speak specifically about what they do. Because the restorative process involves both that individual that has committed the crime and the victim of that crime. Mm-hmm. And the Restorative Justice Center is that process in which you heal the community and whomever else has been harmed through your decisions. So, and that includes, of course, the victims. So, first we have the executive director, which is Nina Curtis, and she's been the executive director, again, I apologize, but around 7 years. We have a youth division, and that is everything in the restorative process that includes the youth in our community. That could be court diversion for the youth. It also, restorative practices is brought into our school systems now as a way for the young children in our school and the young adults in our high schools to engage in that community process, let's say, of restoring a harm that's been done. So the youth division has RJCs in schools. Berkshire has been doing it now, I believe, for a couple of years. Again, that would be great for you to have that team on here and talk about the restorative practices within our school systems that are going on.
I wrote down some of these things, some thoughts that I was having as I was looking online.
Okay.
Because this whole process of restorative justice can potentially affect families,
absolutely.
schools, churches, businesses, scout troops, athletic teams, legal system, communities at large, and, the criminal justice system.
Absolutely.
The courts.
Restorative justice is, really taking fold across, or restorative practices across the nation. And it is, Franklin and Grand Isle County certainly are out in front. We also have the victim services, an individual that works with the victims and their expectations and needs. We have a pretrial services, an individual that works with those that are in process of the court system. We have the DLS and driving violation services that are available. We have a full transitional housing unit with 10 individuals that are placed in housing. They're considered to be a little bit higher risk of recidivism, and there's a whole housing unit that works with them. We have a court diversion division. We have a COSA, which is Circles of Support and Accountability, and that is community members that volunteer and come together and literally in a circle wrap an individual in support and accountability once they're out of the criminal justice system, once they're in our community. And then we have the division that I'm the manager of, and that's called the One Stop Division. And that division is there are other restorative justice centers within the state, but we are the only one that has a one-stop program.
What does that mean?
And that one-stop program means that you work with an individual around all of the needs that they may have that might be considered barriers to helping them to be successful. So even though the first gate is that they're probably unemployed, possibly don't have the education they need, including a high school diploma. That's the first gate for me to work with them. But we know that in order for you to be successful in the workplace or in a job, that there are a whole host of barriers that not only they have, but the general public have towards being successful in the job. Transportation, right? Housing, possibly childcare, possibly food, possibly all those things that other individuals in our community suffer with all the time as well. the one-stop service is meant for those in probation, parole, and FSU to get the support on all of those wraparound services.
How did we get here?
Their needs, specific to that, their needs are not any different than all of many other people in our community. In fact, I think if it wasn't on this show, Linda, it was another show that I had done with Richard, in which, as a region or as an individual, quite honestly, I identified the formidable four, I call them a workforce, that time and time again, people come up against, that prevent them, that become a barrier, that prevent them from being successful, most often in the workplace. And I bet you can guess what those four formidable things are: housing, transportation, substance abuse, and childcare. And so that idea that these services are only for the guys and gals on probation and parole is certainly not true. These are barriers that are to everyone.
So they don't have families that support them. They don't have. I come from I grew up in the 40s and 50s, and this was all unheard of. You had a family, your family had high expectations of you. I told the students at the city school, from the time I was this high, I had a little job to do at home. And the bigger I got, the bigger and tougher the jobs got. And my mom came along and checked out exactly how well I did the job.
Well, I think that first, our family units are different. We know that. Certainly, it's not uncommon for the individuals that I work with now to not have a family unit that's there to support them and may not have had throughout their lives. But that, again, unfortunately, isn't uncommon for the general public either.
I know.
That's a much bigger question or answer than I would have. But I know that it's important that we support these individuals while they also support themselves, are ambitious, have a responsibility for themselves, and work right along with you in it. When I was working in the program in the school system and I met with young adults, I used to say, I have one requirement, okay? I will help you in any way that I can. But if ever I'm working harder for you than you're working for you, then we're going to chat. And if we have to chat twice, it's probably not going to end well for you. But, so that expectation is absolutely there. But the fact that the individuals I think it's probably magnified for the guys and gals coming out of the correction systems as far as the barriers to overcome some of this stuff. So the point is that they need those wraparound services just like many other individuals. I may be able to match them up for Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is federal money to support individuals, as well as vocational rehabilitation and all of those funds. So part of my job is making the connections in the community that might be able. I don't provide all of those services, but I, for the most part, know who to pick up the phone and call, right? And then support them in making sure that they do what they need to do. So that's the one-stop program that I manage. On top of that, we've been very fortunate here in the region so that we have secured a grant from the Vermont Department of Labor, as well as some of the Department of Corrections funds that are already received, to develop a pilot program in construction. And over the course of time, we gathered together all of the partners. We certainly know that the trades and construction are one of the industries that are screaming for people, quite honestly.
I know.
Not only are not enough people going into those fields, the requirements to go up into those fields are higher and higher.
You have to be reliable.
And just the industry itself and the skill set, the technical skill set needed, as well as safety. That is an industry that's aging out faster than they can backfill.
I know someone who deals in that type of an industry, and he keeps saying, I can't find people who I can count on to show up. or they'll come for a week and then you never see them again. And that's not good for anybody.
No. So it is an industry that I have already worked with through a program. There were 5 of us here in the state that were identified for the Vermont Talent Pipeline Management, and that is about creating pathways in our most critical industries to fill the holes.
Where the needs are.
Trades or construction was the number 1 that we worked
Really?
on. Number 2 is manufacturing, and number 3 is healthcare. So it is, less than ironic that the program that here in Franklin County that I'm able to build is with the construction, with the construction field. So, the pilot program. The focus of the program is on a curriculum called the NCCER curriculum. And I am so embarrassed to say I can't remember the second C in it, but it's the National Construction and Education and Research. And it is a national certification, credential that you can receive if you go through 8 or 9 modules of instruction.
So
the Vermont Talent Pipeline Management a year ago identified the NCCER curriculum as being with the construction industry as being the instruction that would best suit individuals and the industry. So the tech centers in the state endorsed it as being what will be instructed in all of our building trades type programs in the technical centers.
Because
so that started a year ago.
There are safety issues in that too. When you're working in construction, they have to understand.
Well, you're right, Linda, of course. And so that core curriculum for construction involves 8 modules that it involves 9 modules, but 8 of them we will be doing in this program, and 8 of them are usually what's being taught within the building trades programs at our tech centers. We have basic safety, as you said. We have basic communication skills, basic employability skills, introduction to hand tools, introduction to power tools,
definitely,
construction math, construction drawings, and construction materials.
And did you get those from people in the industry?
Well, this is at a national level, yes. At a national level, this curriculum is being offered and delivered.
How many, Kathy, how many people are in this program in Franklin Grand Isle now?
The program has not...
In this one, is it this?
In the One Stop? Okay, the One Stop program, I'm probably at this time working with 35 individuals right now.
And these are
rolling.
People who have committed some sort of crime?
Right. So they've come out of jail, out of the correction systems, and they are under probation or parole, and they have a requirement that they need to have a job. It's a requirement of the Department of Corrections that they have a job.
So do you work with the court system at all?
That would be, I don't directly, that would be the Pre-Trial Services Division that works. There's different entities. Divisions. And again, I'm hoping that you'll have some of these, my partners in as well
we'll see
to
what
explain.
We can do.
That one-stop service is maybe some of the people I'm working with will do this pilot, but certainly not all of them. So the pilot program is meant to be a 2-tier process. Within the first 5 to 6 weeks, which will start about May 7th, we will do an orientation. So for those individuals that are out there that think that they are on probation and parole, and they have a desire to go into the construction field, even if they have some experience, the chances of them having this nationally recognized curriculum is very slim. So on May 7th, we will be having an orientation that explains the entire program, that brings other partners on board, like the Vermont Department of Labor, Vocational Rehabilitation, Vermont Adult Learning, Northwest Tech Center, all the partners in the region that are coming together to support the Restorative Justice Center, myself in doing this pilot. We'll do that on May 7th. then somewhere around mid-May, after they go through that intake process, finding out what services they're eligible for, which they can collect both money to be in the classroom, and $10.78 an hour. There are programs out there for instruction.
Just for the
Classroom
for the
instruction,
learning?
and that's an eligibility that's not just for these people. That is part of the WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act by the federal government, that individuals might be eligible for training and get paid an hourly rate.
After they have the training,
Yep.
and let's say they get into the program or a job, how are they monitored while they're in the construction business or working in a construction business? Is it the employer who reports back on?
Well, so they go through, first division is Tier 1. So in the Tier 1, which will be 5 to 6 weeks, individuals will be going 2 to 3 days, evenings a week for about 2.5 hours, or a weekend.
For training.
For training. They're in a classroom. They're going to get their basic safety and their OSHA training. They're going to get their hand tools, their power tools, their employability skills, and their communication skills. That will just be a training opportunity. They will graduate if they pass those certifications. Then they will go into a Tier 2 if they choose. Some of those individuals may go on to another, choose not to go on to Tier 2 that is strictly construction. The reason I built it that way is because those 5 modules can transfer into almost any other field.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's hand tools and power tools, we know that type of application is suitable
talent,
for many
whatever.
fields.
Yeah.
That's right. Some of them will move into Tier 2, and Tier 2 will have the last 3 classes that will be delivered. Again, depending on when these people are working, because they'll have to have jobs as well, working and not. They'll get the construction drawings, construction math, and construction materials. At the same time, up to 30 hours a week, they will be on-the-job, hands-on training in a construction job through the city of St. Albans for some of their properties that need to be done. And again, assuming they're eligible for WIOA or vocational rehabilitation funds, they will be able to collect money per hour, $10.78, our minimum wage per hour, to be in the classroom for Tier 2, as well as on the job site working. Okay. And that, again, so that we're clear, that piece is not anything that's being allowed per this pilot. That is money that is available for any type of training and so forth if an individual goes through the intake process with the Department of Labor or vocational rehabilitation.
Okay, well that's...
So at the end of that, so Tier 1 will start in mid-May and will be done by the end of June. That's our goal. As you know, Linda, when you do a pilot project, sometimes you're building that ship while it's flying, right? Yeah. Right? You're sailing it, or you're flying the plane and you're building it. So our goal is to start mid-May, go out for 5 weeks of training, complete those first 5 modules, and start at the 1st of July. They'll start Tier number 2, in which they have 3 more classes to complete and up to 30 hours in a work environment for all of July and all of August.
Wow.
And then we have employers. Engelberth Construction has been amazing. I'm speaking, and a lot of the construction companies that I worked with through the Vermont Talent Pipeline are aware of the program, but I'm speaking before them on April 30th to completely explain the program, and I am very positive that many of them will guarantee interviews to these individuals. And then to answer your question, of course, once they're employed by these companies, they'll be obviously treated like any other employee as far as what's expected of them, who's monitoring them. I mean, I may look to them for feedback to see what our success rate was, but they already know when you put somebody through a program like this, no matter who they are, if they're successful and make it to the end of that, the chances of them being successful in the workplace when they hire them are probably better than the average person, right?
Well, they've demonstrated their desire to excel or to be prepared or what have you. Now, if any of these, or is it a likelihood that any of these individuals who might be in this particular program would have have a history of a drug problem or?
Right, absolutely. The individuals that I am working with are either in recovery or in a medically assisted treatment program or, have recovered, although you're always in recovery, but, that certainly there is a good chance that high percentage of them also have some substance abuse.
Addiction, yeah. It's so sad, isn't it?
But they're probably, unfortunately, the percentage is probably higher, obviously, than the general public. But as you and I know, that addiction, substance abuse addiction is part of our general public as well.
Oh, yeah. I just, at my age, it's very hard for me to grasp all of the problems in our society that were, perhaps I'm a little naive. I'm sure there were some problems in the past, 50 years ago or whatever, but it just blows my mind that we're in this place right now, and we have been for years now, where so many people need so much assistance and support and guidance and love, really. You need to learn to like yourself.
Oh, you're right. I know.
That's so important.
It is. But we know that certainly, in my opinion, this is Kathy Lavoie, not Restorative Justice Center. I do think a lot of it goes to the family unit.
Amen.
But we also know that there are a lot of people with some very supportive families that nonetheless find their way into the court system, into the criminal justice system, and into
it's
addiction.
not always a dysfunctional family.
No.
As I told my grandsons when they were growing up, choose your friends wisely.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not nice to other people, but if you see someone who's going down the wrong path, I don't think you want to be walking beside them. You might try to dissuade them from going down that path, but you don't want to go along.
Yep, no, I certainly. But that said, I've worked with as the Workforce Investment Board. I placed well over 500 people in jobs and some sort of training and education program.
Wow!
And I met a lot of great people, and I have to say, the 40 that I'm working with, there are a lot of great people.
I bet there are.
And
it must be so rewarding for you to see the potential for these folks who have gone down a path that wasn't the best,
Yep.
and to try to help them to get themselves on the right path or a right path. It's got to be.
It is, but you do it like you do with anybody else. You hold them accountable.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You support them when you need to. You treat them the way that you would treat any other person. And, the restorative process, I'm still learning some of this, the circles of support and all of that. I haven't been that ingrained in it. And if other individuals are able to come and speak about the entire process, it will be great. But for me, what I don't know about restorative justice, I do know this. I know how to treat people. I know how to meet them where they're at.
Absolutely.
I know how to hold them accountable at the same time that I'm supporting them. So, and that's
a gift, but it's one that you've learned.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not easy.
No.
But when you want to help people, there's so many moving parts to that. It's not just a simple, okay,
No.
we're going to do this,
No.
because you have this, and this that are factors that are involved.
Yeah.
Lives can be very complicated, as you know.
Yeah.
And God bless the families out there who are trying to really, raise their children with respect and have expectations of them and teach them, the things that they need to learn to be a healthy citizen or part of the community or just for their own family,
Well, I'll tell you a quick story.
Sure.
I'm not sure how much longer we have.
About 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, I when I was doing my other job through the Workforce Investment Board, one of the things that I did often was go out on tour. And I believe wholeheartedly that there are too many people in our region that don't know what opportunities are sitting right here in this county. So part of what I did with young adults and adults, I teamed up with Voc Rehab and Weber and these other entities that work with adults, is we made sure as a region, I made sure that when we knocked on an employer's door, we didn't do it individually. So we would go out on tour.
On a team?
As a team? As a team, we would bring along whomever our clients were, whether they were young adults or older people. And we would tour the facilities. And it's just amazing what people learn from doing that. I've always said if I did a show someday for this it's going to be Just Around the Corner is going to be the name, and we're going just around the corner to see every place that we have opportunities in the region. So I wanted to implement that here as well with these individuals. So back about a month and a half ago, I had 3 of them that I wanted to bring on tour into a local manufacturer. And I'll tell you who it was. I can't tell you the individuals, but it was Techner Apex here in St. Albans. And they got Business of the Year last year through FCIDC, and I think they've gotten Business of the Year through the Chamber. So they're a great little company. The man that is the manager there, Eric, is unbelievable. So I had gone on many, many tours there, but I called him about these individuals, and the manufacturing world, by and large, is not yet receptive to necessarily working with guys and gals who have a criminal record. So, but I'm working on that, and Eric said, absolutely, bring them in. So I'd been prepping the guys, and I had said, we're not sure you're going to be able to get a job here or any other place, but you need to be exposed, because if not tomorrow, maybe a year from now, right? Maybe at some other time. And they need to understand some of the skill sets that are needed.
Sure.
So the morning of the tour, one of the guys that I'm working with comes in early, pops his head in my door and says, we're going on tour today. And he was kind of he wasn't yet presentable as far as, of course, he had just gotten up or whatever. And I'm like, well, you need to go home and get ready to go then.
Yeah.
So he did, and he comes in, at 2 o'clock when we were headed out, and the guys had helped him cut his hair, and he'd shaved up, and he had on his best clothes, just like anybody else, and he was just thrilled to go. Picked up 2 other guys, and we went on tour. And it was just amazing to see them walking through this facility, to see Eric interfacing with them on what the business is about, what the skill sets that are needed, what type of benefits there are, what the pay is, having a discussion with them. One of them was certainly on medically assisted treatment, what that would mean, whether or not that would be acceptable. They talked a little bit about what their crimes had been, and all that conversation. And to see one of the guys was kind of slouched down in his chair, and the minute Eric started talking, he sits up and he is, tuned in and ready to go. And it was just one of, I know it was a very valuable tour for those guys, as well as it was for the business. And
an experience that they hadn't had before.
That a lot of people haven't had, but they certainly had never expected to have.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to be doing on a regular basis, the exposure to what the opportunities are, because that is what engages people, that helps them to move forward and set a goal and say, okay, maybe I can't get that job today, but what do I need to do to get that job a year from now?
Sure.
Or 6 months from now.
Hope.
Well, that's right.
It's seeing life through another lens.
A different lens, that's right. And that is the conversation that I'm having with the employers of the region is, please, I've built trust with you, I think, over many years as far as the way I vet individuals for the skill sets that are needed for a particular job, my expectations, what you have for expectations, and now I'm trying to help you see it through another lens. What about if they have a criminal record? What is it that is acceptable to you if they meet all other things.
And do you speak with the participants who are going to have one of these interview type opportunities about the fact that this person has a business?
Oh, absolutely.
They have invested themselves, their time, their learning, everything. This is their life, and they have opportunities for other people, but there are certain things that they have to have in their employees so that they're accountable and reliable and...
Absolutely, I do. But that's no different than the conversation I had in my previous job.
Sure.
You know, and you would have individuals have said to me over time when I say, you know how serious this is. We are moving you forward. We know you meet these skill sets. It's important that you invest and fulfill. And oftentimes they will say, well, I know I don't want to hurt your reputation. And it's like, wait, this isn't about my reputation.
That means they respect you.
That means there's a level of respect, but it really never is about my reputation being harmed. What it means is if you go out there and you do something,
it's on you.
I don't want them questioning the next person I want to place there. It's not about me. It's about the opportunity that you might take away from the next person.
Yes, good.
That is another good candidate.
Sure.
And I think that when you talk to them in that way, that's what makes them feel. You know, my boys played football, and one of the things that the coach would do sometimes is when an individual did something wrong, he sat and watched while the rest of the team did the laps, right? And that brought on a guilt, brought on a shame, brought on that feeling that my buddies are having to pay for what I did. So, and that's how this is. You know, they really do care about the next guy coming.
You're part of a team.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, so that is the pilot program. We're very excited. It is the only one in the state.
Wow.
Certainly, I hope that besides helping these individuals, helping the construction market, we also are laying the foundation with this pilot for a process that might be used next time for manufacturing, or the time after that for automotive, or whenever I gather a group of people that there's a particular interest, right? We know how to roll it out in this region and beyond. So the Department of Labor locally is very excited. At the statewide level, our commissioner is very excited.
We need workers, as you have said, Kathy. And I can't tell you how many employers I have heard from just through meeting people and having discussions about how frustrated they are that they can't find people, like I said before, who are either they're unreliable or they don't have the skill set. And, you know, when you're running a business, you need those things to come into play.
Well, I think the construction companies are going to step forward and engage this population that we ought to be engaging. It just, you know, it makes economic sense, number one, right? There's an economic piece that it supports our economy. It also takes an individual that we are supporting some way financially and puts them in control of their own finances, right?
Sure.
And it also makes sense as a community. Individuals are in our community. They need to re-enter and re-engage. It gives them a purpose.
Contribute.
And for them to do that. And then just as a community, I mean, as a society, it's just the right thing to do. You know, it's difficult sometimes. I do have a few companies that, one company looks back to 1994 for their criminal record. 1994. You know, that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so...
well, you know, they may have issues or the type of business where they're afraid that someone might be injured and then they'd be culpable. You know, who knows? If you're using, you know, power tools or whatever and you're careless or, you know, you never know. And then you could
no more than the general public.
You could be diligent and still have an accident. But there So many moving parts to this. It's unbelievable.
I know. Today I have a steering committee, and I had my steering committee meeting, and there's a lot of moving parts. And each and every person is an individual. So the way in which we meet their needs and the funding that supports meeting their needs is different for every one of them. So setting up the pilot has been a chore, has been a heavy lift.
But you're that kind of person who likes
But the work isn't done. Each and every person will have their own personal plan towards success.
And as it should be.
Yeah, it should.
Yes, because they're all individuals.
Yes.
And it's their life, and thank God for you.
Well, thank goodness for Department of Labor helping us, that's for sure.
Well, they see the value in what you're doing, and to not only those individuals, but to the employers and to the state at large, the communities. You know, perhaps someone who got off track with their life, and whether it be drugs, whatever, crime of some sort, and paid the price by going into corrections, whatever, and then got out and through programs like this or something aligned along that, started to rebuild their life, and perhaps, hopefully, if they have a loving family, you know, sitting, watching what's going on, the transition of that individual, maybe there can be a reconnection at some point when this individual starts to really prove him or herself.
Yeah.
Is it all males, or is it?
Oh, no, females is absolutely my program, the one-stop program, the construction program. It's whatever gender. It doesn't matter.
Good.
So again, if you know an individual or you are an individual that is on probation and parole or FSU, you're certainly eligible for the program. You should reach out to the Restorative Justice Center. I can be contacted at 752-6077. And come in, you know, there's no guarantees, and let me talk to you about the program and how it will work and the details, and we'll go from there.
What about, Kathy, and folks, there's still 7 minutes left in the program tonight. If you have a question, if you've been listening and are really interested in this program that Kathy has presented and designed and been working on to try to help people in need, people who are troubled or, you know, need to build a healthier future. If you have questions, please feel free to call the phone number. It's not on there at this minute, but I'm sure it can be, and was on there earlier. But just don't call in the last minute, because we want to do there you go. Thank you to the tech room for the phone number. This is important. It breaks my heart, the number of people who are troubled and off track. And that's why I loved speaking with the students. I might have told you, I got so many letters thanking me, and it's not that, it's that they were moved by the message.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll remember and apply, you know, what was said to them.
Yeah.
Because we all can use a little help along the way at times.
Absolutely.
You know, nobody has a life that's just perfect all the time. I know I've had my hard times in life.
Well, and that's it. The barriers to employment. One in particular I wanted to talk to you about is when I left the Workforce Investment Board, I needed to do something with my formidable four, and so we held a big event last fall. But the United Way of Northwest Vermont has picked up the initiative along with Northwest Regional Planning Commission and NCSS. The Working Bridges team from United Way, Oh dear, I know I'm forgetting a few, and
But
I'll
look
feel
at all
badly.
the agencies
That
and
come together. So what is happening now, of the four, formidable four that were identified, the first one that is going to have a summit for discussion on, as a region, as to what the resources are, so that we can understand where the holes are, so that we can, as a region, find a solution.
Sure.
One hole at a time.
Oh, yeah.
The first focus group will be on childcare. And childcare focus group for Franklin County Leadership Roundtable will be Monday, May 6, 2019, from 2 to 4 p.m. Now, that is meant to be for businesses and agencies in particular, but it is obviously an open event. And the discussion will identify where that specific initiative will go.
Where will that be?
That is being held at St. Albans City Hall.
City Hall. Okay. Now, how are you seeing childcare fitting into what we've been talking about?
Well, I think that it's part of my belief, because again, these individuals are battling childcare issues too. But childcare is a perfect example of being a barrier to people across socioeconomic means. It doesn't matter. I may be the first generation, quite honestly, that ends up retiring early just to take care of my grandchildren because they have no childcare facility. It is a desperate, desperate situation across the state, across the nation. But certainly the one place we can focus on, Linda, is here in Franklin County. What are our resources? What are the holes? What do we need to do? Who do we need to engage from business and private to help solve the issue?
We're down to 3 minutes, but I keep wondering about this. Whatever happened to parents taking care of their children? You know, now we have to have this, we have to have that, we have to have the other thing, and the government wants to control it all, and drives private daycare providers out of business with all the regulations, and then we have to provide. But if you're talking about people who are in the program, one of these programs, because they've gone astray in their lives, but they have a child, is that what you're?
No, I'm just saying in general. One of the greatest barriers to employment across the state and here in the region is the lack of quality childcare for working families.
Okay, so what you're saying is then, like a couple who have children and they're both working, how do they manage their finances, or aren't they?
It's not a matter of finances. It's a matter of not being available. There are not childcare spots.
What I'm saying is, do they have to both work full time, or can they operate with one vehicle? What?
Well, again, those are family decisions, family choices.
But they shouldn't be a burden on senior citizens, for instance.
Oh, we're not talking about solutions that are funded through some system.
Oh.
We're talking about building the system we need to build in order to get enough child care facilities in this region. What do we need to do? That doesn't mean subsidies. It doesn't mean necessarily, right. But right now, there are not sufficient seats. How do we encourage individuals to go into childcare? What are the things that are preventing individuals from making that decision?
Putting too many mandates on them.
Okay, so we know that. What do we do? That doesn't change. It doesn't change the fact that there aren't enough seats.
We're not going to solve this in the last 58 seconds.
We're not. But childcare, Monday, May 6th, City Hall, 2 to 4.
I might like to go to that.
And then there will be 3 subsequent leadership roundtables: substance abuse, transportation, and housing.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of respect for you, my friend. I know you're a go-getter and a doer and trying to help people along the way and provide services that are greatly needed. And I respect that a whole lot.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And I thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Great.
And I'm sure we can do it again sometime.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You take care.
You too.
Folks, thank you for tuning in. I'm sure you learned a lot tonight, like I did. I have to say good night. Have a great week at the Maple Festival weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Good night.